Setting up a lawn care business using the bare minimum of equipment and tools. Can it be done? Can you actually make a living out of it? Can you get started that way? Now, viewers, Jeff McLeese Gardening, Melbourne, Australia. Can you run a successful lawn and gardening business using the minimum amount of equipment? If I started again, I would certainly consider using the bare minimum before I ventured into the long journey. Today's video, we're going to discuss, is it possible? Is it possible to run a successful business? Starting a lawn care business with minimum outlay is probably the only option for a lot of people that want to start in the industry. With limited knowledge and limited funds, it's certainly something to consider. The misconception of having the big fancy truck, heaps of machinery, brand new ride-on mowers and standers, great big self-propelled mowers. You know, you can spend a lot of money if you've got the money when you start and you're well heeled with funds. Well, certainly consider, but I reckon a majority of people that start out want to dip their toe into the industry. And I believe you should consider using the minimum amount of equipment when we're first starting out. There's no reason why you can't start out with 3 items in lawn care. Now, the misconception is you should know a lot about gardening and lawns. Not really, because you're going to learn that as you go along in your journey. But to start out with, to start earning some income straight away, using 3 simple items, you're going to achieve a long road ahead of you. A mower, essential, obviously. A brush cutter or whippersnapper or a line trimmer, whatever what you call them over there. Whippersnippers we call them in Australia, and a blower. So those 3 items allow you to earn a very good income by just using those 3 items. Or you can just use a hoe, a mattock, maybe a shovel and rake, and you can make a good income out of that as well, purely by just going around doing weeding jobs, raking over garden beds. Nothing wrong with that, big money. A friend of mine that does it, $150 an hour, he quotes, not to the customer, but he uses that to work out the quote. Customer will ask him how much for the weeding, he'll say 2 hours, he thinks to himself, well, there's $300. $150 an hour for weeding, and he is flat out. He is knocking work back. He's earning a lot more money than the guys that are running around on their big flash ride-on mowers, because he's constantly on site and never loses much travel time and does really well. So, yep, the old hoe on mattock, certainly something to consider as well. The first most important item, of course, is the mower. Now, when you're starting out, a lot of people tend to go and get a cheap mower or use the mower that they've used for their own lawns or their father's mower and try to start that way. Recommend that you consider buying a good commercial mower. I'll tell you why. A commercial mower far outweighs a residential. You think about it. As a residential owner, you'll mow your lawns probably once a week, 50 times a year. In 10 years, there's 500 mows. And a lot of residential mowers probably only last 10 years anyway. Now, a commercial mower, in the commercial, you might do 20 lawns a week. So in 6 months, you've done as many lawns as a residential has done in 10 years. So you can't expect that residential mower to last very long. And there's nothing worse than rolling up to a job and getting halfway through it and you have breakdowns, and you will with a residential mower. A commercial mower, you're going to have to spend a little bit of money. So you've got to beg, scrape and borrow to get a good quality commercial mower. Whether it's self-propelled or whether it's push, it's up to you. That's a personal choice. What brands, again, I'm not going to recommend any brands. I'm not sponsored by anybody, but just have a look and test drive and just do research on each of those things. But mowing, it certainly needs a good quality mower to provide a good quality cut. The customer really doesn't care what equipment you've got. They don't care about the fancy stuff. They want a good job. They want you to be reliable. Because the biggest asset amongst all your tools and all your equipment is actually you. Because you're the one that's going to provide that communication to the client. If you haven't got that skill, your business is not going to go ahead. We'll talk a little bit that later. Of course, with the mower, it's important to have a backup. Now, you don't have to have another commercial backup mower if your funds are tight. Use your old residential mower as a backup, because sometimes a commercial mower belt might break, or you might have a cable might bust or something like that. So you've got that backup with your residential mower, and you can at least finish off the job, so you're not getting halfway through and saying to the client, I'll be back tomorrow to finish it. Very unprofessional. So a backup mower don't have to spend a lot of money on it. Second thing we need, of course, is a line trimmer. Now, what this can do is it trims around the edges of the property, but also you can actually do edges with it. Now, whether you buy a battery or a petrol, it's going to depend on your funds. You can buy real cheap petrol whippersnippers, quite cheap, $300 or $400, and that'll get you by to start off with, because they do last a while. But you can go more in the topper range. Batteries, this one here I've had for 4 years and it's still going. Most of my petrols are probably lucky to get 2 years. So battery is something to consider. But again, we're looking at costs. And that's something. Irregardless of what type of brand, battery or petrol you get in a whippersnipper, get a multi-tool, because a multi-tool gives you plenty of opportunities. Now, a multi-tool's performance is no different to a dedicated whippersnipper. With a multi-tool, we can do a lot of things. We can add on the edger, blade cut edger. So all we're doing is we're buying this attachment, not a great expense. So we can actually provide a good quality cut of edges to our clients. Doesn't take up a lot of room. If your space poor, multi-tool is certainly a good opportunity to use. Why buy a chainsaw when you can get an attachment, chainsaw, pole saw? You can have short, long, you can actually add an extension. So you can do those small little jobs the client may ask. Can you get that branch up there, chop that up? Look, you're not going to cut trees down with it. Well, that's surprising how good these are. But it saves you buying a chainsaw, another expense. Look, down the track, you might be able to do that. But when you're first starting out, having these little items, you can also get a hedger as well, a hedger attachment, rather than buy a dedicated hedger. And I think there's other bits, tillers and other little attachments you can use. So when you buy a whippersnipper, buy a multi-tool, because it just gives you those opportunities. With whippersnippers, it's practice, practice, practice. When you're first starting out and you haven't used one, before you try it on a client's place, go to every relative, go to every neighbour, go to every friend and practice. Practice, practice, practice. They do take a bit of getting used to, but once you get in the system, once you get to feel it, you become part of it. So it's just a matter of practice, practice, practice. But it is such a valuable tool for both edging and both providing slashing grass, etc. So just don't panic about how hard it's going to be. You never know until you give it a go. And of course, unless you want to clean up with a broom, it's going to take you half a day, get a blower. Look, battery, of course. There's petrol blowers. There's a whole range of different types of blowers. These big backpack blowers. But when you're starting out, you're doing you're doing residential properties only, because you're just starting out. So a small little blower will certainly do the job. Blowing actually with the batteries are so quiet, so because people do get annoyed when you're using a petrol one, you're going to get the complaints. I have over the years, because you're screaming and people hate it, really. But I found the battery ones, because they're so much quieter, there's less friction between neighbours around you when you're doing the job. Using basic equipment, you can make a really good income. I mentioned before about using a hoe and a mattock and rakes and spades. You can earn a very good income, because you've got hardly any outlay material of equipment. And also, these jobs, you're stuck on the job for quite a few hours, so you're not wasting time travelling between jobs. Where mowing, you do lose a bit of time if your round isn't tight. And when you're starting out, your round isn't tight, it's all over the place, because you're just chasing as much work as you can get. So you don't need to spend, I see these franchise and some people, they'll spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to set up their lawn care business. Obviously, they're well funded, and if you want to make a big go of it, that's probably a good way to be. But I would think, and I consider, even when I first started, I probably overcapitalised when I first started. Fortunately, it worked, because I love doing it. But I see a lot of people that do spend a lot of money, and after about the first 12 months, they think, this is not for me. So they've got to offload everything. They've got to sell their equipment. They've got to sell their business if they can. So by working with a minimum amount of equipment, it's so easy to dip your toe in. If you don't like it, well, you've got yourself a mower and a blower and a whippersnipper for around your house. So you can never lose. But don't have that misconception belief that because I have to have the biggest and the best, I'm going to be better than you. I know a lot of small operators that earn more money than the guys running around and right on mowing. And I can vouch. I've seen the figures. and I know myself how it works. If I started again, I'd certainly go that way by having those 3 basic equipment. At the moment, we're getting between $80 to $100 per lawn, which takes 20 minutes to 30 minutes. Now, starting out, I'm going to be a bit slower, of course, so that you need to take that in consideration. I'm not going to be as good. I've mentioned in previous videos that when you're starting out, when you're mowing, perfection will not be there. If you're going to spend time on perfection, you're going to go broke because you're going to be there all day doing one lawn. Look at moving forward. Do the very best you can. Have those edges looking sharp. Use the blade edger if you can. But if you just take your time, get a system going, it will work out. Perfection will follow later on as you get more experience. But don't expect perfection at the start. This industry is so easy to get into with low cost entry. And that's why you have a lot of people doing it. That's why you have a lot of competition. That's why it drives prices down. And we've mentioned in other videos about targeting areas that will pay better than other areas. And you need to do your research on that. The biggest thing in our business, you can have the best of the equipment. And I've seen it. I've seen a guy, he bought everything. He come to me and he said, listen, I've got my brand new Hilux ute that I paid $80,000, $30,000 for a trailer. I spent another $60,000 in ride-on mowers, battery equipment, everything. But he lacked one key ingredient because he failed. And he come to me and he asked me, why do I fail? I couldn't tell him because I'm too nice of a person. He just did not have the communication skill. That is the most important tool in your business is you. You've got to have that ability to talk to the customer, to explain what's to be done. They don't care about your big Hilux ute, your big ride-on mowers, whatever. They want the job done. They want the reliability, and they want you to be a nice person and a trustworthy person. This guy, unfortunately, very shy, always looked to the ground when he was talking to people. He couldn't get the trust, and therefore he couldn't get the customers. Did a great job, but he lacked that. So if you are lacking that, get some help. Study online, seek professional help and public speaking. That's very important. You can do that. You can join drama groups. There's so many different ways you can go. Talk to other people about communicating. Ask family and friends, what do I need to do better? How do I present myself to be better? Food for thought. So you can operate a small business with very small outlay and be very successful. As you get bigger, you'll buy the extra tools, you'll get bigger. But then again, I've seen so many people just stay with their 3 items and they've gone a long time and done very well because their overheads are so low, very low. No worries about getting things fixed and purchasing higher priced equipment. But everyone's to their own. We all do things differently, and this is what makes our game so much different to everybody else. We've got our own lanes to run and stick to it. But again, look around and just enjoy the journey. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you on the next video. Please subscribe and love to hear your comments. What do you feel about having just minor basic equipment? Do you think that should succeed? Some guys get second-hand equipment. Always say though, get the best you can possibly afford. But we're not all in that position of having money when we first start out. See you in the next video, guys and girls. Bye.